Welcome to Booktopia TV. My name is Kemi Nekvapil and I am here in Melbourne on the land of the Wurundjeri. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I'm deeply humbled by the oldest surviving culture on this planet. I also welcome any of the First Nations people that may be joining us for this session. And I am joined by the incredible Aminata Conteh-Biger. Aminata, how are you?
I'm very well. Yourself?
I am very, very good. Now, as we're celebrating this time of International Women's Day, let me ask you, how will you be spending the day and the week surrounding?
I'll be spending the day with a lot of a lot of platform speaking, talking about biased, break the bias.
Yes.
Another hashtag. Yeah, and I think even the conversation around that, the topic around that, I've been having conversation with myself. What does that mean? So yeah, I'll be doing a lot of speaking engagements.
Yes, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Whenever it's released every single year, what is the topic of International Women's Day going to be? Yeah. And this year it is break the bias, that it does give us an opportunity as women as well to sort of step into that hashtag and where are we sort of sitting around that subject at the same time? Because I've had those internal conversations too around, you know, bias and what do my biases look like and how do we break the bias? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for the week for me, for International Women's Day, I am going to also be on the platform speaking. I will be in Sydney for actual International Women's Day and then various states actually around this great land through that week. So I'm looking forward to spending lots of time with lots of women and some very good men as well.
Yes, some very good men. There's a lot of good men out there.
There are a lot of good men out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll be seeing you on the platform of Business Chicks. So yes, I will get to see you in real life, which I'm so excited about. So I'll be there for sure.
Oh, that's wonderful. So we'll be spending some time together during that week.
Yeah,
so
if you feel a warm hug, that's me.
That's awesome. So Aminata, you know, we both are authors. We both have books out in the world.
Yes.
So for the people watching that don't know about your book, what would you like to say about your book? If you had 60 seconds, and obviously you can have longer because I have read your wonderful book. The space is now out of my shelf because you're not there, you're here and here. How would you describe your book to the people that are watching right now?
Well, my book, I think first and foremost is it's a human story. It's a story that has sadly been in many countries, especially in what is happening right now in war zone, like between Ukraine. It's a story of war, but it's a story of the humanness of African people. I really wanted to tell my story of the way I was brought up by my delightful and wonderful father and my big extended family. And I wanted the West to see what we African look like. That was really important to me because what happened to me during the war is a small part of my life. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to share a human story. And I think I can say that I'm grateful that I was able to, because a lot of Australians have seen themselves through my story, and that was important to me.
Yeah, I think that's one of the beautiful things about writing, isn't it? Is that we can connect with each other in so many ways just by sharing our stories.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. I feel really honored and privileged to be able to be a mirror of especially the girls that I went through what I went through during the war, and to be able to share my story and in the reflection of theirs also. So yeah, it's a very privileged. Yes,
it's wonderful.
And I know you've written a lot of books. I came across you, I've heard of you so much. Everybody that meets me, like, you got to meet this lady, Kemi. And it was a privilege for you to, honored for you to interview me during when my book came out. And then I read all these incredible things. And it's sad it was during COVID because I didn't have time to go to Melbourne. But I was quite in awe of this goddess, African goddess here who have achieved, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps alone, and I'm still learning of your journey. I'm still I know in this crazy, beautiful life of ours, I'm trying to still learn about your journey and how you've upheld yourself. But I think I would like to hear from your end. I think your background coming from London, Nigeria background, and now living in Melbourne. I'm right, yes, and how you came through this journey that you are at now and how you started it even. You said 18 years, I've been here for 22 years. I can't even,
it's amazing.
Yes. So I would really love to hear your journey through coming to Australia and where you're at.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. It has been a journey. I think this life we're living is a journey. And in a global pandemic, add in war, none of our journeys are over. And, all of these global events affect us in different ways. But, I think our identity and our heritage has a really big aspect of how we get to navigate the world. So, my book is called Power, A Woman's Guide to Living and Leading Without Apology. And the reason that I wrote this book, a little bit like what you're saying around sharing that humanness, but sharing the humanness as a Black woman. So I was in a unique situation where I was one of tens of thousands of middle-class Nigerian children that were fostered out to white parents in the 60s and 70s and 80s in England, which is a touch of colonization and a touch of middle-class parents wanting the best for their children. And they were led to believe that they needed to send their children to England to have a great education and then send them back to Nigeria to become the doctors and the lawyers. Now, obviously, I didn't become a doctor or a lawyer, but my mum is happy because I married a lawyer. So, so she's happy. So that works for her. And so, my book, Power, I talk about my experiences as a child and as a young woman around what I was told and what I witnessed and experienced around power. I think for many women, regardless of our backgrounds, that power is something that we don't necessarily feel that we have. And we see a form of power that is not accessible for us. Most of us know the systems that have been created in the world around patriarchy and misogyny and sexism, but also racism and homophobia and transphobia, that so many of us have felt powerless within those structures. And so the idea of writing the book was to look at, we need to redefine a form of power that actually honors individual humans, and that when we stand together, we use that power collectively to do good in the world for each other and on a global scale.
Oh, wow. I cannot wait to read it. I know it's on pre-order at the moment.
It's on its way to you. It's on its way to you.
I know. I said that to someone today, but I can't wait to gift it to even, not just in that, but just to, especially for a woman of color here. You've come from London, and for me, this is all new. All new to me. From Sierra Leone straight away here. How representation matters. It's so powerful. Like when you see someone, it doesn't matter what platform, but when they represent you in the proudness, you carry it to you. So I'm really looking forward to learn so much from you.
Well, I imagine as well, Aminata, that you've had the same experience as me in Australia, where I have had women from South Asian backgrounds. I have had Japanese and Chinese women and Indian women come up to me and say, it's so good to see you talking. It's so good to read your book. It's so good to see you, because you're right. It's when we see each other, and we don't need to have the same ethnic background. It's just seeing someone that isn't the majority that gives us permission to write our stories and use our voices. And as I talk about in the book, own our power, whether it's from an ethnic background or from a gender base.
Yeah. No, I think it feels, I think sometimes, I don't know how you experience this when people come to you and say that, you almost feel like, because, we're never going to be fully there, because you said it's a journey, but you feel like, I feel like I haven't done anything yet. And then when people say that, I think for me, it makes me feel like, wow, I have contributed to that person's life. That person have seen me through that. I mean, I've been in Australia for 22 years. I've never seen, I remember Masha Hines was the first that I saw, Masha Hines, and then of course, Catherine Freeman, as I said, I didn't know about Aboriginal. We came here completely knowing where I was coming, and seeing Catherine Freeman, we thought she was Black, we're African, so we really were rooting for during the Olympics, but like Masha Hans, I remember seeing her, I'm like, oh, waiting for more, because coming from Sierra Leone, I didn't know about, as I said, I didn't know about race. I didn't know I was a Black girl. I didn't know I had an accent. I didn't know, I thought my English was pretty good. Now I hear it, I'm like, oh, wow.
You have great English.
Yeah, I know. And I didn't know all these things. So I was quite foreign to it. And so, but I always say to people, it didn't touch me, it didn't break me, all those experiences, because I grew up with a father that really put me in such a pedestal that I knew who I was, and that protected me. It was only through building my career that I started noticing things. Oh, you have issue with that. So to hear somebody that look like you, I think representation is so important in any shape or form. It really builds someone's confidence. And for someone like me, I didn't see that. I didn't have that. So I have to go to America to look. I have to go to UK and look for women like that. So it's it's wonderful to have a little bit of platform like that in my place, but to see also someone like you in learning from far, learning and growing. Okay, that's a good example. Let me take that and apply that. That's been really wonderful. Yeah.
And it's interesting, you know, what you say, and I share a story in the book about this, so I was born in London, but I was only there for 2 weeks, and I actually grew up in Kent. And so Kent is kind of South England, and it's known as England's country garden. That's why I'm such an obsessive gardener, because I grew up around that stuff. So I actually took a trip to London in my mid-teens, and apart from family, when I'd visit family in between my foster carers, I wasn't with a group of people that looked like me often. So then I remember going to London and realizing that actually, even though I looked like the people around me, they questioned my validity as a Black person because of the way that I spoke, because I didn't come from parents that had a strong, you know, I wasn't living with someone that had a strong African accent. I was raised listening to, you know, country and Western music, so which I still adored, like Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, but people expected me to love, you know, to love hip hop and all of these other things. And and it's so interesting, isn't it? Because that's the biases that we have. I met someone just the other day, and we were having a conversation about music and the way that they were dressed and everything. I just assumed that they would like sort of punk heavy metal. And they said, oh no, my favorite musician is Bach, you know? And I was like, and there it is. There's the bias. We just make assumptions when we see people, whether it's race, whether it's the way they're dressed, whether it's ages. And I think through writing books, we do get to explore our own identities, but also be open to the identities of other people.
Yeah. And so for what I would like to know from your point of view, when International Women's Day come, and you get requests to come speak about topics and hashtag now and all this, what comes in mind to you for you to say, okay, to this year it's going to be about bias. Last year it was about this, and next year it's going to be about some. How do I, within you, how do you have that conversation with yourself, and how do you see you transforming from making that your place and your change in a more effective way? You know, because we all going to follow this trend, but individually, you know what I mean? Which is really the key, because that's where, for me, that's where the conscience is, that's where the being is, what you do from after the platform, the conversation. How do you get into that transformation like year to year and conversation to conversation?
Yeah, such a great question. There's actually so many questions in there. So for me, I think it's a little bit like what you've said. I have learned that I'm going to take out the word just, because I'm a coach and I'm always telling my clients not to use the word just. So I will take my own, my own words, that I know that as a minority, it is important for me to do my work in the most passionate, joyful, kind way that I can. I know that there are many forms of activism and many ways of being seen, but a really big part of my activism, and I talk about this in the book, is the power of delight and the power of fun, and that it's so easy for us to cast particular people within a certain role. And I know that for me as a Black woman, I want to make a difference by living a passionate, joyful, beautiful, kind, fun life. Like, it's interesting, actually. My husband and youngest child, who's 15, nearly 16, came home and they didn't know that I was here. They went out on an errand. They didn't know I was here. And I'm the person, I waited behind the door for 10 minutes because I knew that when I jumped out at them, it was going to be so good. And I did. And my husband was on the floor. He was scared out of his life. So for me, in terms, that there are all these themes around International Women's Day that can be quite heavy and quite serious. But I also believe that as individuals, we need to decide, how are we going to show up in our equality, that I am allowed to live a life that is joyous and full of fun, and I can jump out at people, as well as write books that share about stories in my life that are very confronting, things that I have done and things that have happened to me. And I want to be able to live with the light and the shadow. A book that I'm currently reading and love is The Light Workers Manifesto. I don't know if you've heard of it. So it's written by Karen Woolrond. She was interviewed by Brené Brown. And she just talks about activism can be joyous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where I am now when I think about the International Women's Day. For me, it's, even though the topics can be quite heavy, that there can be an element of fun and lightness, because I think we're all touched by lightness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great. It's great to hear. I'm all about that flow when it comes to joy.
Yeah.
And living for now. I mean, my favorite book that I have next to my Bible is The Power of Now. Every time I read, I learn something new. I just live in that book and that now. And people always, wow, you're always joyful. And I said, things are happening then that are not working out, but I'm able to, you know what it's like to be able to be alive,
Yeah.
What a pure joy to celebrate that and to be able to age every single day, every single time, every year to celebrate. It's such a privilege. Yeah.
Because I think that's one thing, isn't it? Is that actually, and I talk about this in my book, and I know that first one, I need to say, your dad is incredible. How you write about him in your book.
I love him.
Yeah, I love your dad. Everyone that reads this book is going to love your dad, and you're the one that got him.
Yes.
Yeah, but I also think as well, one thing, some of the choices that you make in your, some of the actions that you take was you deciding to make a choice, not necessarily two great choices, but that our power can come from, okay, the choices I have are not choices I would ever choose, but these are the ones I have. So how do I stand in my power to move forward in this story?
Yeah, no, the past year or two since my book came out, what I've been really interested in is the word that you just said, choice. I have been so fascinated about it, because every time people see me and they ask me questions as to how I live my life, for me, it's just simple. It's just plain, it's choice. And I've come to realize how much we as human beings, it doesn't matter, you'll be in the poorest of the world, but we all have choices. I choose every day. I choose, and that's the power that we don't realize that we have. We just think about choice as government. And going out, like even during the lockdown, when people were like, oh, I have a choice, I have a right. That for me, it's here, the freedom, the choice to choose to say, I'm going to wake up regardless. I'm going to, it doesn't matter what is happening. I've been really, really just curious about that. That's something I want to get into depth as to how we human rise. And that's the reason why I came up with my book, Rising Heart, because it was really pushed towards the poem of Maya Angelou, Still Arise. And I thought about really thinking of how we human beings, whatever we go through in the world, what we're seeing, and how we make a decision to stand up, every single day. How we wake up in the bed, we don't know what is going to happen, but that's the choice that we've made to rise and go for exercise, feed your kids, or go for a run. But I don't think we as human beings realize that we have that. Really, it's ours. We don't need to buy it. We don't need to, people say all the time, oh, when I went to Africa, I went to India, people are just so joyous and people are just so happy, but they're living in a slum. That's choice. They wake up, they're in a slum, they might not have food to eat that when they wake up, but they go out and play soccer and play, and food might turn out there. Food might turn up there. And so, it's been really, I've been really more conscious about the word choice. And when I think of all the International Women's Day, I was part of the Women's March in Canberra. And I don't want to be here the next year. I want something to change. So I'm very conscious now about the change. Not that I'm thinking of the real change than the others, but what are the change that I am making apart from being up that platform?
Yeah.
Really to impact others. So that's what comes up a lot whenever there's the International Women's Day or March for Justice or Black Lives Matter or all these marches. I'm questioning myself a lot for the change that I want to see. I really, really want to see. That means somebody in the shopping center that I'll step in for and really support.
Yes.
and really stand for. For me, that's the change that no one sees. And so, yeah. So it's really...
I love that you said actually that there's an opportunity for us, men and women actually, and people that identify, as non-binary or any other genders, is that in between each, in the same way maybe that we do this with our birthdays, we sort of think about, oh, here I am now, what's happened in the last year, that we can look at, okay, so here I am again at International Women's Day. What is it that I want to choose around how I am going to contribute or impact or serve the message of the year that is ahead? Because there's definitely growth opportunities for us as a collective, but also as individuals. And it's, I love that is the word for you, choice, because that was probably a defining moment for me when I arrived with my last set of foster parents. Was that my foster mother asked me to choose which I arrived homeless because my fourth set of foster parents had been evicted and they disappeared, and my sister and I had no idea where they had gone. And so we actually then went into government care. And the next morning I arrived with my social worker with 2 plastic bags with my belongings. And my foster mother took me shopping and she said, you need things, you don't have anything, you need underwear. And she asked me when we were in the store, what color underwear do you want? Do you want pink underwear or multicolored underwear? And I couldn't really grasp what she was asking me. And then she asked me again and I didn't really hear her. And then she stopped and said, Kemi, I'm asking you a question. What do you want? Do you want the pink underwear or the multicolored underwear? And I suddenly realized in that moment, she's asking me to choose. Yeah. And I wouldn't have known then, but I look back now and I think that was the first moment that I felt a sense of power, that someone was asking me to choose something that I wanted for myself. And that is something that I have also never let go of, this power of choice, that even if we don't like the choices, we can still step into our power by owning, I don't like the choices, but I'm going to make a choice out of 2 bad choices.
Yes.
True. Sometimes that's all we have. During lockdown, the most powerful decision I think I made during lockdown was to eat a lot of crumpets with jam. That was a life-defining moment. That was just what I needed to do. I'm going to choose. I'm locked in my house. My family are here all the time. And being an introvert, that was my biggest challenge. Just having people all the time. So I just decided I'm going to eat a lot of crumpets, and that seemed to work for me. And that brought me fun and delight. So that's my activism.
That's great. I think we all have stories like that. I think I'm very interested to know, Kemi, how you end up, because again, when we talk about choice, choosing the path that has led to where you are and the unknown that is out there. What makes you, I know there might be little things in your journey that makes you travel to where you are today, where you are at, and you say, and then writing the book now, Power. I'm very curious to know about,
I think you're right. There's lots of little things along the way, but I think the most powerful thing that I have learned in my life up until this point was when I realized that I was 16 years old roughly, and I was surrounded by people that didn't look like me, all my school friends, and they all had boyfriends and I didn't, which was a huge, it's a huge thing when you're 16, all your friends have a boyfriend and you don't. And I knew it was because I was Black. I knew it was because I was in a white school and I was the only Black kid. I knew that was why I didn't have a boyfriend. And it was too much of a, for someone to ask me out, it was too much out of their scope of what was going to be okay and what would be the backlash on them. And I got to a point where I was really, really unhappy. I mean, I'd probably say now, looking back, that my mental health was declining. We didn't even talk about mental health then. But I remember looking in the mirror one day at school, and all of my friends were sort of behind me. We just had a physical education class. And I just had this voice, and it actually was a voice from outside of me that said, if you keep comparing yourself to anyone else, you will never be happy. And I knew it was true. I knew it was true because that's what evidence had shown me. I didn't look like anyone else around me. I didn't have the same life experience as anyone else around me. So if I kept comparing myself to those people, how could I ever find a sense of happiness within myself? And so for me, I think that was a very big transformative moment, because that was when I decided, you know, as we say now, swim your own race. I'm not a great swimmer. So, although I did start actually about 5 years ago. I started having lessons, but it's not one of my core geniuses. I wouldn't want to race anyone. So, you know, that idea of stay in your own lane, I have definitely done that. I navigate the world, you know, even as a writer, I don't compare my writing or my book to anyone else's book. I actually have a strong sense of, I'm the only one that can write my book in the way that I have written it, because it's coming from me. And I felt that very much in reading your book as well. So I'm going to flip the question back to you, but I very much felt in reading your book that no one else could have written your book. Because no one else has had your experiences. You know, that, and if you hadn't have written it, then we don't get to understand what power can look like in the circumstance of war. So let me put the question back to you. When you think about times in your life that have been transformative or that have really stood you in good stead, what would you say they were, or that was?
I think for me, really, the time would be really for me when I was kidnapped, or because the way it happens, like I always say to people when I talk about privilege, because everybody get scared of that word. I was
so true.
Absolutely privileged. And I consider myself privileged being in Australia. Even here. So I was very, very privileged, and I was in a bubble. I grew up in a bubble. Nobody could touch me. And so being taken away from my father's hand and not knowing how to fight for nothing. And all of a sudden, I have this strength that I was coming up with ways of escaping things, even though things horrible were happening to me. But when it comes to us being in the war zone, I was doing things that I don't know where they came from. But it was not, it was only when and I think coming to Australia, I kind of, those strength manifest without me knowing the words, because we don't have words for all these fancy things like empowerment, inspiration. Every time people say this word, I'm like, oh, that's a thing. You know, this is survive, you know? So when I think it manifests slowly, because I lived by myself. In Australia, I was like 16 years old. I was 20 years old. I went to high school. I've gone through all this experience, but I did not feel any left out. I didn't grow up with that personality in Africa. That was a good thing growing up in Africa. You and somebody can fight and that's over. While here, the bullying was very new, but I didn't feel it because it didn't affect me. I don't know what it was. But I think as my strength manifests, it was when I went to Sierra Leone in 2016 with SBS Dateline documentary. I remember saying to one of the nurses, I said, when we get to the place where I got exchange, it's called Grafton. And I said, when we get to Grafton, because Sierra Leone has changed since then. When we get to Grafton, can you please tell me where it is so I can remember? Because I can, if I see the street, I will know, but not exactly. But I didn't want the journalist to know, because I knew if the journalist knew what it was. On the camera to me, and by that time we're taking a woman who we were returning after they've had fistula surgery done. And I remember when we got to Grafton, she said to me, "This is the place." And all of a sudden, I had not thought about the war. Since my time, 16 years in Australia, I had not thought about it. But all of a sudden, all this image came to me, and I'm like, I really survive. This is real. This is me. I was in the car just having that conversation. And I promised myself that when I come back, even though I knew I was not one of those person, I'm still not one of those person that people tell what to do or what you should be. I'm not. But I really was very more intentional that I am going to really be the person that I am most proud of. Because if you ask me today, who is my hero or who is my hero, what I would say me. I really recognize. I can't choose anybody. Like I don't know anybody that gone through what I've gone through and survive, and come to Australia and survive what I'm surviving. I don't know anybody. So my inspiration has always come from within, even though I don't get to think about my story, but that really changed me, the way I have thought, like I see myself. I didn't see myself low at all, but it was a big boost for me. Yeah. To really go like, wow, like you did all that. You're here and so that was,
I feel that and I hear that, because when I hear you talk about Grafton and talk about, you know, once you'd escaped and that exchange, I remember that, or I feel that, but I also feel, and it's interesting because I come from a culture of England where you're not allowed to be up yourself, you know, you're not allowed to show off, you're not allowed to celebrate. And then here we are in Australia, the tall poppy syndrome, where you're not allowed to shine too brightly and you're not allowed to say anything. One of the things I love about the American culture is that they do celebrate each other, and people are allowed to celebrate themselves. I love that you say that you are your own hero, because I feel the same. And it's not that there are not other women that I admire, that I respect at all. But when we have been on a journey, when we have had to survive something, we know what it has taken to get to where we are. So we have to honor that, I think, in being able to say, I can stand in my power and say that I look up to myself, that I am proud of what I have achieved. And it doesn't mean that there's an arrogance in there, or that I don't acknowledge the incredible feats of other women at all. We stand on the shoulders of each other. Absolutely. But there is something, isn't there, in being able to say, especially as a woman, I am proud of who I am and I look up to myself, and that is a form of power.
And we need to be in a place also where I mean, again, I keep preferring coming from Sierra Leone because you were brought up in London. In Africa, this is it. When people say you dress well, you do this well, you actually move around to show off.
Thank you. Especially in Nigeria.
Nigeria. It's really like you go like, wow, you look beautiful. I mean, you're turning around, showing off. And,
look at me.
So even in Australia, I had to really not downplay it, not at all. But I remember when I was writing my book, my editor called me in the room. And when you're writing your book, like the editors are always the last battle.
Yes.
And my editor called me in the room and we're talking. First of all, I didn't know that there's been already this conversation about my relationship with Antoine, because apparently they wanted it to sound like he saved me.
Oh,
yes. Like, he come that this love story that society has placed there, the woman needing all that. I didn't know this conversation has been going on, and my ghostwriter is saying to them, like, do not talk to her about this because this story has come from him. And I remember going to the room with her and we're talking, and you can see she's nervous to ask me to tell me things. And then she said to me, and this is the part exactly what I've explained about the grafting. So I was saying how I recognize my strength. And then I remember she's really, when you say that you recognize your strength, your brilliancy, and I was saying all this word about me. But I could not comprehend a woman want to question me, to downplay that, because other women would think I am talking highly of myself. I was amazed that she said, we need to, because people that are going to read this book, they're going to feel like you're up yourself. I'm like, even if that was the case, but the subject that I was talking about, finding my strength, all of a sudden,
your voice.
And I said, I don't think this book is going to sell, because this I want there. And because even when I was talking about brilliancy, she was coming more from, and I'm not an academic, I'm dyslexic. I was talking about a light. I was talking about something that really sparked within me. That, like, this, you did all this. I was recognizing something for the first time in 16, 17 years.
Yeah.
But she wanted me to downplay it. And then I thought, I'm like, and I said to her, I said, don't you think this is the problem we are fighting women? Because a man would see that as something beautiful and sexy. Yes. My husband goes like, wow, my spiritual dad goes like, I put you in the same standard of Michelle Obama. And I'm having a conversation with a woman telling me that another woman would think I'm up myself. Yeah. Because I'm saying that. And that was so mind-blowing.
Yeah, and that is beautiful, because that's what I think we have the opportunity as women, as well as a collective, during this topic that's coming up around International Women's Day around this week, is that we have an internal bias as well, and that we get to explore that. So let's look at this, because I think, you know, it's great that we've shared that we are both at a point in our lives where we own that we are proud of ourselves and our achievements, whatever they look like, not just in terms of being authors and writers, but just as women and mothers and partners. But if you were to think of, you know, the hashtag for Booktopia around this event as well, I love that there are so many different hashtags, is Be Her. So when you do think of other women that have either supported you or elevated you, you may know them, you may not know them, they may be deceased. Who would be a couple of women that, you know, that would really for you embody that Be Her message?
Be Her message would definitely be women like Maya Angelou, Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
Like when I listen to her voice and I listen, I like just their story again, when you've gone through that kind of life. And listen to what, not about even what they've accomplished.
Yes.
It's the integrity, because it's integrity is such a, it's like the what I breathe. Really, and when I don't mean of people, I mean what people don't even know about. And those women like that, I really see. Yeah, I really see myself, and I look at them and I listen to them sometimes. And I didn't even know these women ever, especially Maya Angelou. I didn't even know these people exist when I was in Africa. Yeah. And those are the women that I go like, and then like their book, her book was like banned in America, and she did that. Yeah. Oh, and she was in a place where I have so much voice now. And no, I gotta make them proud, so that next people that come after me or with me, are proud. So when they see me, they go like, yes, because there is so much power when you see somebody, you go like, yeah, that's us. You know, you go like, you almost screaming, like I'm talking, you almost scream from the inside out.
And there is so much power in that, power in the mirror, and the women that come to mind, and it kind of definitely Audre Lorde, you know, activist, feminist. Definitely Oprah Winfrey, because she just carved her own path. And I would also say recently in Australia as well, Brittany Higgins and Grace Tame, and that how power can look when women use their voices and authentically, with integrity, as you said, share our stories. Yes. That to me speaks this idea of be her. Be able to stand in your power, even if your knees are shaking, even if the systems around us are telling us not to speak, that as women, breaking the bias, and, you know, the hashtag of being her is all about using our voices without apology, for and with each other. Yes. Aminata, I know that we could speak forever, like actually forever. And hopefully one day we will get to do that. But I'm sure that people that are watching this session now, you know, are hopefully going to run out and buy your book. So I assume you'll buy your book from Booktopia. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
100%. So that's
and yours too, power. Can't wait for power.
And mine too. So if you want a rising heart and you want to step into your power, then both of our books are available at Booktopia. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye, and happy International Women's Week.
Yes, thank you.